Rami wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked out over the endless desert. The sun was high in the sky, and the sand stretched like a golden ocean in every direction. He felt the heat on his skin, but his mind was focused on the strange readings from his equipment. Something was under the sand, something very big. Beside him, Tarek checked the scanner again. The device beeped with irregular pulses, and the small screen showed an unusual pattern. "Rami, I have never seen anything like this," Tarek said. His voice carried both excitement and caution. "It is not natural. Something is buried here." Rami nodded. He had been exploring deserts and ruins for most of his life. He had seen lost cities and strange rock formations, but this was different. He could feel it in his bones. "Then we find it," he said. "Before anyone else does." The desert was not kind. Sandstorms could appear suddenly, and the heat could make people dizzy and weak. Still, Rami and Tarek were prepared. Their team was small, just the two of them for now, but they had plans to call for backup if needed. They set up camp near the center of the readings, a place where the sand seemed unusually smooth, almost like it had been untouched for centuries. As the day passed, Rami used a metal detector and ground-penetrating radar to map the area. The screen showed shapes beneath the surface, forming straight lines and angles that no natural formation could make. "Look at this," Rami said, pointing at the screen. "This is not random. It is something built." Tarek leaned closer. "It could be very old, or it could be something more advanced than we imagine. Either way, we must be careful." Night came, and the desert became cold. Stars filled the sky, bright and countless. The wind whispered through the sand, carrying a quiet, eerie sound. Rami sat by the campfire, thinking about the patterns on the radar. His mind raced with questions. Who built it? How long had it been buried? And why? Tarek joined him with a small notebook in his hand. He had been recording the readings and making sketches of the shapes under the sand. "The lines are too straight for nature," he said. "I have seen pyramids in old photographs, but this is bigger and more precise than anything on Earth." Rami frowned. "A pyramid? Here? In this desert? That would be impossible. No one has ever found one in this area." "I know," Tarek replied. "But the shapes on the radar are clear. We are looking at something buried, something powerful. Maybe even more important than we think." They spent the night discussing possibilities. They imagined a lost civilization, or maybe visitors from far away. Rami could not stop thinking about the adventure ahead. He had always loved the unknown, the challenge of finding things others thought were lost. This might be the greatest discovery of his life. The next morning, they started digging. The sand was hot and soft, making every step tiring. They used shovels and small machines to remove the layers carefully. As they dug deeper, they found something unusual. A smooth surface of stone appeared beneath the sand, carved with lines that glowed faintly in the morning light. Rami's eyes widened. "It's a wall," he said. "Someone built this. And it is very old." Tarek examined the markings. "They are not like any writing we know. They look like symbols, maybe a language or code. This is incredible." The two men worked for hours, uncovering more of the structure. It was huge, far larger than they expected. The top of the stone surface disappeared into the sand above. They could not see the full shape yet, but it was clear that it was a pyramid, buried and forgotten for ages. Rami felt a mixture of fear and excitement. "We need to document this carefully," he said. "If anyone finds out before we do, the world will descend on this place. We must be the first to understand it." Tarek nodded. He took photographs, measured the stones, and made careful notes of the symbols. "Rami, this could change everything we know about history," he said. Rami smiled but kept his expression serious. We are just at the beginning. Wait until we go inside. By midday, they had cleared a small entrance at the base of the pyramid. A dark opening appeared, like a mouth waiting to speak. Heat and wind came out of it, mixed with a strange, dry scent. Rami held a flashlight and peered inside. The stone walls extended downward, and he could see steps leading into darkness. We should be cautious, Tarek said. We do not know what is inside. It could be dangerous. Rami agreed but felt his heart race. He had dreamed of moments like this. Adventure, mystery, and discovery all in one. We start tomorrow, he said. We will go carefully. No rushing. We need to be ready for anything. They returned to camp and prepared their equipment. Ropes, lights, scanners, and first aid supplies were laid out. Rami could not sleep well that night. His mind imagined what could be inside the pyramid. He pictured rooms filled with treasures, walls covered in unknown writing, and perhaps machines of a kind humans had never seen. Tarek was quieter, but his excitement matched Rami's. He studied the stars through a telescope, thinking of the connection between the desert and the universe. Maybe the pyramid was not just a building. Maybe it was a message. A message for humans to find when they were ready. As the sun rose again, the desert seemed calm. The golden sands shimmered in the light, hiding the secret below. Rami and Tarek packed their tools and approached the entrance. Their hearts were full of anticipation. The lost pyramid was waiting for them, buried beneath the desert, ready to reveal its mysteries to those brave enough to enter. This was the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, intelligence, and teamwork. The adventure of a lifetime had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. Rami and Tarek stood at the mouth of the pyramid. The entrance was shadowed, a dark rectangle in the golden light of the desert. Dust rose from the sand as the wind blew gently across the surface. The air felt heavier here, almost as if the pyramid itself was waiting for them to enter. Rami took a deep breath. Ready? He asked. Tarek nodded. We must be careful. This place is ancient, and we do not know what is inside. With flashlights in hand, they stepped into the darkness. The air immediately cooled, a sharp contrast to the heat outside. Their footsteps echoed against the stone walls, and the sound seemed to travel far into the unknown. The first corridor was narrow, lined with carvings that glimmered faintly in their lights. Rami crouched to look at one of the symbols. These symbols, they feel like they are more than writing. Almost like they are alive. Tarek bent closer to examine them. It is possible. Ancient civilizations may have used technology we do not understand. We must record everything. They moved forward slowly. The corridor turned sharply, then descended in steps carved directly from the stone. Each step was smooth from centuries of use, yet there was no sign that humans had walked here before. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, faint vibrations that they could feel in their hands when they touched the carvings. After what felt like an hour, they reached a large chamber. The room was massive, with high ceilings disappearing into darkness. Strange patterns were etched into the walls, and a soft light seemed to come from the stones themselves. Rami switched on a portable scanner. The device beeped steadily, showing energy readings far stronger than anything they had seen before. This is incredible, Rami whispered. This is not just a building. It is, alive in some way. Tarek shone his light across the room. In the center, a platform rose slightly from the floor. On it lay a smooth, metallic object, polished and shaped like a small cube. It glimmered with shifting colors, reflecting the light from their flashlights. Rami approached carefully. It is not just metal, he said. It is, moving, or changing. Look at the patterns. Tarek knelt beside it, examining the cube from different angles. It could be a device. Some kind of machine. But I have never seen technology like this. not even in the most advanced labs on Earth. As they studied it, the cube suddenly opened slightly, revealing a small glowing sphere inside. Light spread across the room, forming shapes in the air. Symbols floated in 3 dimensions, turning and spinning slowly. Rami felt his breath catch. "Look at this," he said. "It is showing something. A map, maybe a map of the stars." Tarek nodded slowly. "Or a message. It could be instructions. But from whom? Or what?" They spent hours observing the sphere, taking photographs and recording every detail. Every time they thought they understood it, the patterns shifted, revealing new shapes and symbols. Rami realized that the cube was testing them. It seemed to respond to their attention, almost like it wanted them to learn. Finally, the sphere disappeared, and the cube closed itself silently. The chamber returned to its calm state, but the air still felt charged. Rami and Tarek exchanged glances. "We need to go deeper," Rami said. "This is just the beginning. There must be more." The next corridor was darker and narrower. Steps led downward, spiraling into deeper shadows. The walls were carved with more symbols, and small alcoves held strange objects, stones that hummed faintly, crystals that reflected colors they had never seen before, and small mechanical devices that moved without anyone touching them. Tarek examined one of the devices. "It is as if this place was built to protect knowledge. Each object is a piece of a larger puzzle. We must be very careful." Suddenly, the floor beneath them shifted slightly. A small section of stone moved, revealing a hidden passage to the side. Rami looked at Tarek, eyes wide. "Did the pyramid do that? Or was it always there?" Tarek shook his head. "I do not know. But we have to go. The pyramid seems to be guiding us." They entered the hidden passage, which led to a chamber filled with water. A small underground pool reflected the faint light from the walls. The water was perfectly still, almost like glass. Rami knelt to touch it. The surface rippled, showing images of faraway places, cities in the sky, planets with bright rings, and stars that burned with colors unlike any they had seen. "This is a vision," Tarek said softly. "The pyramid is showing us something about the universe." Rami studied the images. "It is beautiful. And it is a message. Whoever built this wanted someone to see the stars, to learn, to understand." They moved along the edges of the pool, careful not to fall in. The water seemed to respond to their movement, rippling gently as if acknowledging their presence. At the far end of the chamber, another stairway led downward. This one was wider, with carvings that glowed brighter as they descended. The air grew colder, and Rami could see his breath. The walls were no longer smooth, they had reliefs showing figures that looked like humans, but with unusual features. Their eyes were large, and their movements were elegant. Some figures held objects that resembled machines, and others pointed toward the sky. "These figures, they are teaching," Tarek said. "They are showing the connection between life and knowledge. Maybe the builders wanted to teach humanity about the universe." Rami felt a thrill of excitement. "We are walking through history, and maybe the future too." The corridor opened into another large room, darker than the others. Strange lights moved along the walls, forming patterns that reminded Rami of the cube. In the center, a pedestal held a triangular object, glowing faintly. It was much larger than the cube, and it seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Rami approached slowly. "This is something important," he said. "I can feel it. The pyramid is alive, and it is waiting for us to understand it." Tarek stood beside him, shining a light. "We must record everything, Rami. Every symbol, every shape. This knowledge is priceless. It could change everything we know about our world." They spent hours studying the triangular object. The lights moved as if alive, revealing more symbols and images of distant worlds. Rami realized that the pyramid was more than a building. It was a library, a teacher, and a guide. And they were the first humans to witness its secrets. As they prepared to move deeper, Rami looked back at the entrance. The sun was setting over the desert, turning the sands golden and red. He felt a mix of awe and determination. This was only the beginning, and the challenges ahead would test everything they had. But Rami knew one thing clearly: humanity had discovered something extraordinary, and their journey into the pyramid had only just begun. Rami and Tarek moved cautiously deeper into the pyramid. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing walls that glowed faintly with symbols and shapes. The air was cooler now, carrying a faint hum, like the sound of a heartbeat. Every step they took echoed through the stone corridors, making them feel smaller in the vast space. At the center of the next chamber, they discovered a large platform. It was made of smooth, dark stone, polished to reflect the faint light from the walls. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, glowing softly. Rami approached it slowly. "This is different from anything we have seen," he said. "It feels alive." Tarek knelt beside the carvings, tracing the lines with his fingers. "It is like the symbols are part of a language. But it is not a language we know. Maybe it is more than words. Maybe it is a system, a code, or a machine." Rami carefully touched one of the carvings. The moment his fingers made contact, the platform trembled slightly. A faint blue light rose from its center, forming a sphere that hovered above the stone surface. Both men stepped back in surprise. The sphere pulsed with energy, casting patterns on the walls. Symbols rotated inside it, shifting into shapes they could almost recognize. Rami's heart pounded. "It is activating," he whispered. "Something wants to communicate." Suddenly, a projection appeared in the center of the room. At first, it was unclear, like mist forming into shape. Then a figure became visible, standing tall and glowing with soft light. It looked humanoid but unlike any human they had ever seen. Its eyes were large, filled with light, and its movements were smooth and precise. Tarek's voice trembled slightly. "It is an image. Or a hologram. But it feels real." The figure raised a hand, and symbols floated in the air around it. Rami noticed that the symbols moved with the figure's gestures, forming patterns that seemed like a message. He tried to understand them. Some looked like maps of stars, others like machines or tools. The figure seemed to be explaining something, guiding them through concepts they could not fully grasp. "It wants us to understand," Rami said. "It is teaching." "But what?" Tarek studied the images closely. "I think it is showing us knowledge. Knowledge from another civilization. One that may have existed long before humans. Look at the star maps. Some of these systems are far beyond what we have discovered." The figure spoke, though no words came from it. The symbols moved in time with its gestures, creating a strange but beautiful form of communication. Rami realized that understanding this was not about words. It was about thought, observation, and attention. The pyramid was giving them a lesson. Rami took notes quickly, drawing the symbols and shapes as accurately as he could. Tarek recorded the images with his camera and scanner, trying to capture every detail. They could feel the power of the room, the presence of intelligence behind the creation of the pyramid. It was as if the builders had anticipated humans would arrive and wanted to test them. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The figure continued to project knowledge, showing images of machines that moved without fuel, cities that floated above the ground, and ships that traveled among the stars. The walls of the chamber reflected the images, multiplying the effect and surrounding them with a visual language they could barely comprehend. Then, suddenly, the figure paused. The sphere above the platform spun rapidly and emitted a soft hum. Symbols on the walls glowed brighter, forming a path forward. A hidden doorway opened at the far end of the room. Rami and Tarek exchanged astonished glances. "The pyramid is guiding us," Rami said. "It knows we are ready to move deeper." "But deeper into what?" Tarek stood, brushing dust from his clothes. "We do not know. But this is an opportunity. Few humans have ever seen anything like this. We must continue." They stepped through the doorway into a new corridor. This one was narrower, with walls that seemed to bend slightly as they walked. The air hummed with energy, and faint lights moved along the edges, like tiny stars following their steps. Rami could feel a strange warmth in his chest, a mix of fear and excitement. At the end of the corridor, they entered a round chamber. In the center, a pedestal held a cube, smaller than the first but glowing with the same soft energy. Symbols floated around it like fireflies. Rami approached carefully. As his hand touched the cube, the hologram reappeared, projecting another figure nearby. This one was different. It seemed to communicate more directly, showing tools and devices. Images of energy flowing through pipes, beams of light moving without obstruction, and machines that could lift massive objects with ease appeared around them. Rami and Tarek realized the pyramid was teaching them about technology far beyond their own. Tarek whispered, "This knowledge, it could help humanity. If we understand it, we could build machines we never imagined." Rami nodded. "But we have to be careful. This is powerful. The pyramid is testing us, seeing if we are ready." They spent hours interacting with the cube and the hologram, learning the patterns of the symbols and the meaning behind the images. Every gesture, every observation, seemed to unlock more knowledge. It was exhausting but thrilling. They realized that human curiosity, attention, and intelligence were the keys to understanding the pyramid's secrets. As they prepared to leave the chamber, the cube closed itself and the hologram faded. The walls dimmed slightly, but the path forward remained open. The pyramid seemed satisfied with their progress, guiding them to the next stage of their journey. Rami looked at Tarek, a mix of wonder and determination in his eyes. "This is only the beginning. We have learned a lot, but the pyramid has more to show. We must be ready for whatever comes next." Tarek nodded. "We have proven ourselves so far. The pyramid recognizes it. But deeper inside, there may be challenges we cannot yet imagine." They took a moment to rest, sitting on the cool stone floor. Outside, the desert sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows across the sand. Rami thought about how small they were in comparison to the pyramid and the knowledge it held. Yet, he felt a surge of pride. Humans had curiosity, courage, and intelligence. They were proving that they could rise to the challenge. With renewed energy, they stood and moved forward. The pyramid was alive in ways they could barely understand. It was a teacher, a guardian, and perhaps a guide to the stars. Rami and Tarek had only scratched the surface, but they were ready to continue. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, using their minds, their courage, and their determination. The lost pyramid beneath the desert had awakened, and with it, a journey of discovery and knowledge had begun. Rami and Tarek stepped carefully through the corridor that the pyramid had opened for them. The air felt thicker here, as if the walls themselves were alive. Soft lights glowed along the edges, guiding their path like invisible hands. Every step echoed loudly, and they both felt the weight of history pressing around them. At the end of the corridor, they arrived at a massive chamber. The ceiling arched high above, disappearing into darkness. In the center of the room were three large stone doors, each covered with glowing symbols. The doors were perfectly smooth, with no handles or hinges visible. A soft hum filled the chamber, vibrating through the floor and walls. Rami looked at Tarek. "It seems the pyramid is testing us. These doors are not ordinary. We need to figure out which one leads forward." Tarek studied the symbols carefully. "They are not random. Each pattern is connected to the others. I think this is a puzzle. We have to solve it to proceed." Rami knelt beside one of the doors and traced the carvings with his fingers. The symbols responded to his touch, glowing brighter. As they watched, small lights began moving along the patterns, forming shapes that reminded them of constellations. "I think we need to align the symbols with the stars," Rami said. "The pyramid has shown us maps of the sky before. Maybe this is the key." Tarek nodded. They worked together, moving their hands along the carvings and observing the shifting lights. Slowly, the symbols began to match the constellations they had seen in the holograms. A low rumble filled the chamber as the first door began to slide open, revealing a passage beyond. Rami smiled. "We did it. The first trial is complete." The passage led them downward into a narrow corridor. The walls were covered with strange reliefs showing figures carrying objects, walking through light, and interacting with glowing spheres. The air here was cooler, and a faint mist hung over the floor. They had to move slowly, careful not to slip. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a wide chamber filled with water. The surface was perfectly still, reflecting the faint light from the walls. At the far side of the pool was another stone platform, and on it lay a small crystal orb glowing with soft blue light. Rami stepped forward. "This is another trial. The pyramid is testing more than our minds now. I think it wants to see how we act." Tarek examined the water. "It is deep. But it does not look dangerous. Maybe we have to place the orb on the platform to proceed. But we should be careful." They moved cautiously across stepping stones that jutted from the water. Each stone was smooth and slippery, but they held firm. Rami reached the platform first and lifted the orb. The crystal glowed brighter as he held it, and patterns of light spread across the water, forming symbols and shapes. Tarek stepped up beside him. "The pyramid is alive. It responds to us. It wants to see if we are worthy of its knowledge." Rami placed the orb carefully on the center of the platform. The water rippled, and a beam of light shot upward, hitting the ceiling. Symbols moved along the walls in response, and the chamber filled with a low hum that resonated through their bones. The light then shifted to form an image in the air. It was a doorway, similar to the ones they had seen before, but this time glowing with golden light. Rami and Tarek knew this was the next path. As they moved forward, the corridor narrowed again, and the walls began to vibrate faintly. Small stones on the floor lifted slightly, forming a pattern of steps. They realized the pyramid was creating a path for them, testing their observation skills. Rami stepped carefully, following the pattern. Tarek mirrored his movements. Each step had to be precise. If they misstepped, the stones would sink, and the path might close. Their hearts raced, but they stayed focused, their minds sharp and alert. Finally, they reached a new chamber. This one was circular, with walls that seemed to pulse with energy. In the center was a large pedestal with 3 objects, a sphere, a cube, and a triangular prism. Each glowed softly, casting moving patterns across the walls. Rami approached the sphere first. Each of these must represent something. Knowledge, energy, or power. We have to choose wisely. Tarek studied the objects. "I think the pyramid wants us to understand balance. Perhaps we cannot just take one. Maybe we have to use all 3 together." They experimented, placing the objects in different arrangements. Each time, lights danced along the walls, forming new patterns. The pedestal hummed with energy, and they could feel the room responding to their actions. Finally, they placed the objects in a triangular arrangement, each corner touching the light of the others. The symbols on the walls aligned perfectly, and a low rumble filled the chamber. A hidden doorway slid open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Rami and Tarek looked at each other, a mixture of exhaustion and excitement in their eyes. "We are ready," Rami said. "The pyramid has tested our mind and our skill. Now we go deeper." The spiral staircase led them down into a chamber filled with strange machinery. Gears, levers, and glowing conduits stretched across the room, moving silently. Rami realized that this was more than a test, it was a control room. The pyramid itself was a machine, ancient and intelligent. Tarek examined the machinery carefully. It is amazing. Whoever built this had knowledge far beyond anything we know. The pyramid is more than a building. It is alive and intelligent. Rami nodded. And it is trusting us to learn from it. To carry its knowledge forward. As they explored, small lights moved along the conduits, responding to their presence. The pyramid seemed to guide their hands, showing them how the machines worked. Each lever they touched, each gear they studied, revealed new secrets of energy, movement, and design. Hours passed, and they realized that the trials were not only tests of intellect but also lessons. The pyramid was teaching them how to think, how to observe, and how to understand energy in ways they had never imagined. At the end of the chamber, a final doorway opened. Beyond it, they could see a vast hall filled with light and symbols, waiting for them. Rami took a deep breath. We have passed the trials. Now we enter the heart of the pyramid. Tarek smiled. The knowledge we find there could change humanity forever. But we must remain careful. The pyramid has more to teach, and perhaps more challenges to face. They stepped forward together, ready to face whatever awaited them. The trials had strengthened their minds and their courage. The lost pyramid beneath the desert had tested them, and they had proven themselves worthy. Now, the true journey into its heart was about to begin. Rami and Tarek stepped carefully into the vast hall the pyramid had opened for them. The air shimmered with energy, and faint lights moved along the walls like living currents. Symbols floated in the air, rotating slowly, glowing with soft colors. The room was immense, larger than anything they had seen inside the pyramid. In the center of the hall, a massive doorway rose from the floor to the ceiling. It was carved from a single piece of stone and covered with intricate symbols that seemed to move as they watched. Rami approached slowly, running his fingers over the smooth surface. The symbols pulsed with light under his touch, reacting to his presence. This must be it, Rami said quietly. The heart of the pyramid. The place where all its secrets are kept. Tarek nodded, eyes wide with excitement. We have come so far. The trials have prepared us. Now we discover what the pyramid has protected for centuries. The doorway slowly opened, revealing a chamber beyond. Warm light spilled into the hall as they stepped inside. The room was filled with structures that glowed with energy. Pillars of light rose from the floor to the ceiling, and symbols floated above them, forming patterns too complex to understand at first glance. At the far end of the chamber stood a large platform. On it rested a device unlike anything they had ever seen. It was shaped like a crystal sphere, surrounded by rings of glowing metal that rotated smoothly around it. The entire device pulsed with energy, casting shimmering reflections across the walls. Rami felt a shiver of awe. This is incredible. The pyramid itself is powered by this. Or maybe this is the pyramid's brain. Tarek approached carefully. It looks like it contains knowledge. Maybe all the knowledge the builders wanted to preserve. If we can understand it, we could learn more than any human has ever known. As they examined the sphere, the rings around it began to rotate faster, and symbols appeared in the air above it. The symbols formed images: ships moving through space, machines harnessing energy, cities floating above the ground, and patterns of stars they had never seen. Rami realized that the device was projecting the knowledge of an entire civilization. This is more than a machine. It is a library, a teacher, and a guide. It contains the wisdom of the builders. Tarek touched one of the rings, and it shifted in response. The sphere glowed brighter, and new symbols appeared. They moved with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Rami and Tarek understood that the device was interactive. They could learn from it, but they had to be careful and precise. Hours passed as they explored the machine. Each gesture, each movement of the rings revealed more knowledge. They saw designs for energy systems, vehicles that traveled faster than light, and machines that could manipulate matter itself. Every discovery was more amazing than the last. Rami paused to catch his breath. The pyramid trusted us to reach this place. But it also tests us. It is teaching patience, focus, and understanding. Tarek nodded. We cannot take this knowledge lightly. If misused, it could be dangerous. But if we learn it carefully, it could change everything for humanity. Suddenly, the device shifted again. A new projection appeared in the chamber. This time, it was a holographic figure, similar to the ones they had seen before but larger and more detailed. It moved gracefully, and symbols floated around it, forming patterns that seemed to speak directly to their minds. Rami stepped closer. It is communicating with us. The pyramid has chosen to share its ultimate knowledge. The figure projected images of planets, stars, and galaxies. It showed energy flowing through massive structures, creating life and sustaining entire ecosystems. It revealed that the builders of the pyramid had mastered balance between energy, matter, and intelligence. They had created systems that lasted for centuries, even millennia. Tarek watched in awe. The pyramid is showing us how to think beyond our limits. How to understand the universe in ways we cannot yet imagine. The holographic figure then pointed to a section of the chamber. Rami and Tarek noticed a small console with symbols that matched those on the device. As they touched it, the machine responded, projecting a sequence of instructions. It was like a lesson, guiding them through steps they had to follow to understand the device fully. Rami concentrated, following the instructions carefully. Tarek mirrored his actions. Slowly, they began to understand the rhythm of the machine. Energy flowed between the rings and the sphere, and the projections became more vivid. They could feel the intelligence of the pyramid interacting with them, teaching them without words. After several hours, a new doorway opened on the side of the chamber. Behind it was a smaller room, filled with objects that glowed with soft light. Tools, devices, and structures of strange design rested on pedestals. Rami and Tarek realized that these were practical applications of the knowledge contained in the central device. This is remarkable, Rami said. The pyramid has preserved both knowledge and technology. We can study these tools and learn how to use them safely. Tarek examined one of the devices. It is energy-based. We could power entire cities with this, but only if we understand the principles. The pyramid is teaching us responsibility as well as knowledge. They spent the next hours exploring the smaller room, examining every device, and understanding its function. Each discovery built on the previous one, and they realized that the pyramid was preparing them to become caretakers of this knowledge. Finally, they returned to the central sphere. The rings slowed their rotation, and the symbols in the air formed a final image, a star system unknown to humans, with a planet at the center glowing brightly. The holographic figure raised its hand and seemed to indicate that this was the next step, the ultimate purpose of the pyramid's knowledge. Rami looked at Tarek. The pyramid has shown us everything it can. Now it is up to us to take this knowledge forward, to use it wisely. Tarek nodded. We are not just explorers anymore. We are students, and maybe one day, we will become teachers ourselves. The pyramid has chosen us, and we cannot fail. As they left the chamber, the light from the device slowly dimmed, but the path forward remained clear. The pyramid seemed satisfied, guiding them back toward the spiral staircase and eventually to the surface. They had completed the heart of the pyramid, discovered its secret chamber, and unlocked the knowledge it had protected for centuries. Outside, the desert sun had risen again, casting golden light across the sand. Rami and Tarek stood at the pyramid's entrance, feeling the warmth on their faces. They had been changed by the experience. The pyramid had tested them, taught them, and entrusted them with its knowledge. Rami looked at Tarek with determination. We have to bring this knowledge back. Carefully, responsibly. The world needs what we have learned. Tarek smiled. And one day, others will follow. The pyramid has chosen humanity to continue its legacy. We are only the beginning. They turned toward the horizon, ready for the next journey. The lost pyramid beneath the desert had revealed its greatest secrets, and Rami and Tarek knew that their adventure was far from over. The knowledge they had gained would change the world, but only if they could understand it fully and use it wisely. Rami and Tarek began their journey back through the pyramid, carrying the knowledge they had gained in the secret chamber. The air felt lighter now, but the corridors seemed different. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the soft hum of energy from the heart of the pyramid echoed faintly around them. "This place is alive," Rami said. "It guided us to the secret chamber, and now it is guiding us back. But I feel it is testing us again." Tarek nodded. "The pyramid does not give knowledge easily. We must stay focused. Any mistake could block our path or trigger a trap." They walked cautiously through the spiral staircase and entered the large hall where they had completed the earlier trials. The glowing pillars of light still pulsed softly, and symbols floated gently above them. But the doors they had passed before were now closed, sealed by energy barriers that shimmered like water. Rami studied the symbols carefully. "It looks like we have to solve another puzzle to open these doors. The pyramid wants to make sure we understand responsibility, not just knowledge." Tarek examined the patterns in the air. "The symbols are different from before. They seem to be a sequence, like steps we must follow in the right order. If we choose incorrectly, the path may close." They moved slowly, tracing the symbols with their hands and memorizing the sequence. Each step made the energy barriers flicker and pulse. They took turns guiding each other, watching for subtle changes that indicated success. Finally, they reached the last symbol. As Rami touched it, the energy barriers dissolved, and the doors slid open silently. A cool breeze blew through the corridor beyond, carrying the scent of the desert. They had passed the first challenge on their way out. The corridor led them to a chamber filled with sand. The floor was unstable, and every step caused small slides of sand. In the center of the room was a sunken pit, and glowing symbols marked its edges. Rami realized this was another test, one of balance and observation. Tarek stepped carefully onto the edge of the pit. "We must cross without disturbing the sand too much. The pyramid can sense disruption. It may close this path if we are careless." Rami followed, watching each movement. They moved in sync, stepping lightly from stone to stone embedded in the sand. The glow from the symbols lit their path, and small vibrations warned them of unstable spots. Halfway across, a sudden tremor shook the chamber. Sand shifted violently, and Rami nearly lost his balance. Tarek grabbed his arm, steadying him. "Stay calm. The pyramid is testing our courage as well as our skill." They continued slowly, focusing on the glowing symbols and the rhythm of the chamber. Finally, they reached the other side safely. The pit seemed to settle, as if satisfied with their caution and patience. Beyond the sand chamber, they entered a narrow corridor that twisted and turned. The walls were lined with mirrors that reflected their images endlessly. At first, it seemed harmless, but soon the reflections began to move differently from them, mimicking actions they had not performed. Rami frowned. "This is strange. The pyramid is trying to confuse us. We must trust our instincts, not the reflections." Tarek nodded. "Focus on each other. If we follow our own movements, we can avoid being misled." They held hands to keep themselves together and walked slowly through the mirrored corridor. Each step required careful attention, as some reflections appeared to reach out, trying to distract them. The light shifted, creating illusions of walls and dead ends, but they ignored the false images and moved steadily forward. After what felt like hours, the corridor ended at a chamber filled with water, similar to the trial they had passed before. This time, however, The water was in motion, swirling around in patterns that made it difficult to see the stepping stones. The crystal orb from before floated in the center, glowing with a faint light. Rami studied the scene. We must use our knowledge from the trials to cross again. Observation and patience will guide us. Tarek nodded. And we must move together. One mistake could tip the stones or disturb the water too much. They stepped carefully onto the stones, watching the patterns of movement in the water. Each stone shifted slightly as they moved, but they adjusted quickly. Rami reached the orb first and touched it. The water calmed slightly, forming a clear path across the chamber. Tarek followed, and together they reached the far side safely. The pyramid seemed satisfied, the orb's glow strengthening as if congratulating them. As they progressed, they noticed the walls vibrating faintly. Small stones and debris fell occasionally, and they realized that the pyramid was testing their endurance as well. Every challenge required focus, precision, and teamwork. Finally, they arrived at the last chamber before the exit. The walls were dark and smooth, absorbing all light. A faint humming filled the space, and the floor shifted under their feet. Rami could feel the energy of the pyramid surrounding them, almost like a living presence observing their actions. Tarek whispered, "This is the final challenge. The pyramid is testing our courage, our focus, and our respect for its knowledge." Rami nodded, taking a deep breath. They moved carefully across the shifting floor, stepping in rhythm with the vibrations. The humming grew louder, resonating through their bones, and they could feel the pyramid guiding them, offering subtle hints through the energy patterns. At the far end, a doorway appeared, glowing faintly with golden light. They reached it together, exhausted but determined. The doorway slowly opened, revealing the warm sunlight of the desert. They had made it. Outside, the pyramid stood silent, towering above the sand. Rami and Tarek felt a sense of awe and accomplishment. They had passed the final challenges, learned the lessons, and carried the knowledge of the lost pyramid safely. Rami looked at Tarek. "We did it. The pyramid trusted us, and we proved ourselves worthy." Tarek smiled. "But the journey is not over. The knowledge we carry is powerful. We must use it carefully to help humanity, just as the pyramid intended." They turned away from the pyramid, walking toward the horizon where the sun painted the desert in shades of gold. Every step felt lighter now, filled with hope and purpose. The trials had tested their mind, body, and spirit, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for the challenges ahead. The lost pyramid beneath the desert had shared its secrets, and Rami and Tarek had earned the right to carry its knowledge forward. The world awaited them, and with the lessons they had learned, they knew they could face anything. Rami and Tarek walked away from the pyramid, carrying the knowledge that had been protected for centuries. The desert stretched endlessly before them, golden under the rising sun. The pyramid stood silent, a guardian of secrets, but its energy still hummed faintly in the air. They knew the true journey had only just begun. "We must return to the city," Rami said. "The knowledge is too important to keep to ourselves. Humanity can benefit from it if we share it carefully." Tarek nodded. "We need to find scientists, thinkers, and leaders who will use it responsibly. This is not just about discovery, it is about guidance." They traveled across the desert, avoiding dangerous sandstorms and shifting dunes. The knowledge they carried was not only in their minds but also in small crystal devices they had recovered from the pyramid. These devices contained energy systems, schematics, and instructions from the builders. They glowed softly, as if aware of the responsibility entrusted to them. When they reached the city, people were amazed to see them return. Word of the lost pyramid had spread quickly, and many had believed the treasure was only a legend. Now, Rami and Tarek were living proof that it existed, and they had returned with knowledge that could change the world. Rami called a meeting of scientists and engineers. He explained that the pyramid contained wisdom far beyond current human understanding. The devices and knowledge they brought could provide clean energy, advanced transportation, and new ways to understand the universe. Tarek added, but we must approach this carefully. The pyramid teaches balance. Knowledge without understanding can be dangerous. We must learn, experiment, and respect the lessons we were given. The scientists listened with awe. They examined the crystal devices and began to understand the principles behind them. The energy flowed without fuel, creating light and power that could sustain entire cities. Machines moved effortlessly, following the designs from the pyramid, and the patterns of energy suggested possibilities humanity had never imagined. Rami and Tarek worked alongside the scientists, teaching what they had learned. Every day brought new discoveries. People who had only dreamed of advanced technology began to see it become real. The city changed quickly, growing brighter, cleaner, and more organized. The knowledge of the pyramid was not only powerful but also practical. But the greatest lesson Rami and Tarek shared was not about machines or energy. It was about responsibility. They taught that the pyramid had tested them, and now it was humanity's turn to learn how to use knowledge wisely. They spoke about patience, focus, teamwork, and respect for the forces they were uncovering. Weeks turned into months, and the city became a center of innovation. Energy problems vanished, transportation improved, and people's understanding of science grew rapidly. But Rami and Tarek remained cautious, remembering the lessons of the pyramid. They guided experiments carefully, preventing reckless use of the new technology. One evening, Rami stood on a balcony, looking at the city glowing under the stars. The pyramid could not be seen from here, but he felt its presence in the air, a reminder of what they had learned. Tarek joined him. We have done much, but there is still more to learn. The pyramid's knowledge is vast. It is not just technology, it is a way of thinking, a way of seeing the universe. Rami nodded. We must share it gradually, teaching each generation the right way to use it. If we hurry, we may repeat the mistakes of the past. The pyramid trusted us, and we cannot betray that trust. As months passed, other cities began to benefit from the knowledge. Engineers traveled to share designs, and scholars taught the principles of balance and energy. Humanity began to change, not just technologically but in thinking and cooperation. People realized that progress required wisdom, not only invention. One day, Rami and Tarek received a message from a distant research facility. They had successfully built a prototype using the pyramid's energy system. The prototype was stable, powerful, and sustainable. The team there was thrilled, and the knowledge was spreading beyond the city. Tarek smiled. The pyramid's lessons are reaching farther than we imagined. This is only the beginning. Rami looked at the horizon, where the desert met the sky. The pyramid taught us patience and responsibility. We must continue teaching others. One day, humanity will be ready to explore the universe itself, guided by what we have learned here. The two friends returned to the crystal devices, examining them and refining their understanding. The more they studied, the more they realized the depth of the pyramid's knowledge. It was not only about energy or technology, it was about harmony with nature, balance with the universe, and respect for life in all forms. Years passed, and the city became a symbol of hope and progress. People remembered Rami and Tarek as pioneers who had brought wisdom from the lost pyramid. The devices were studied carefully, with schools and academies created to teach the principles of balance, energy, and responsibility. Rami often thought about the pyramid. He remembered the trials, the chambers, the challenges, and the holographic figure that had guided them. Every lesson from the pyramid was now a lesson for humanity. Tarek joined him one morning, holding a crystal device. The pyramid trusted us with this knowledge. We have shared it responsibly, and the world is changing because of it. Rami nodded. Yes, and the change is just beginning. We have only scratched the surface of what the pyramid intended. There is more to discover, more to teach, and more to understand. Humanity is ready for the next step. As they looked at the sun rising over the desert, Rami and Tarek knew that the pyramids' legacy would continue through them and the people they had taught. They had completed their journey, not by taking the pyramids' knowledge for themselves, but by sharing it wisely, respecting the lessons it had taught, and preparing humanity for a brighter, balanced future. The lost pyramid beneath the desert had revealed its greatest secrets. Rami and Tarek had faced its challenges, learned its wisdom, and carried its knowledge forward. Humanity now stood at the threshold of a new dawn, guided by the principles of patience, responsibility, and harmony. The desert was silent, but the legacy of the pyramid would echo through generations, shaping a world that could reach for the stars with wisdom in its heart. And so, the story of the lost pyramid ended not with treasure taken or power seized, but with knowledge shared, lessons learned, and hope renewed for all of humanity.